Patrick J. Buchanan, one of the original insurgents himself. 54 days to go, Mr. Buchanan, and the polls show we've got a surging Donald Trump in a major way. Your thoughts?
I think we do. I think it's the race is closer and closer to even. I've seen the Donald is ahead by several points here and there. But the key things, I think, Sean, as we all recognize, he's moving slightly ahead in Ohio and Florida, which are crucial, and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, I think, could well decide it.
Well, let me give you more, because he's also up in Colorado. He's also up in Nevada. He's also up by 8 in a poll that came out earlier today in Iowa, very important state. North Carolina, he's up by 3. And, again, there's now 3 polls that show him up in Ohio. And the L.A. Times poll nationally has him up by 6. This is not a minor shift. It seems late deciders are going for him.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that he's got some polls showing him up in Maine. That's part of the Democratic base. There are 18 states, Sean, and D.C., which have gone Democratic in the last 6 straight elections, and they constitute 242 electoral votes. I think you throw in Florida or something, and Hillary wins it all. I haven't seen Trump yet break any of those 18 states or D.C., and I think, if you could take Pennsylvania out of her bag there, then she's got to start taking former red states. So I think this is going to come down basically to Pennsylvania and North Carolina if Trump can hold Iowa, Ohio, and Florida.
Well, I agree. And by the way, not an easy task. I mean, the Electoral College for a Republican is very difficult because you start out without California, Oregon, or Washington. You start out without New York and New Jersey and without Illinois, and you've got yourself a hell of an uphill battle.
Sure, you start of those 18 states I mentioned, 4 are in the 7 mega states. That's New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and California. Those are 4 of the top 7 states in terms of electoral votes, and normally they're all ceded basically to the Democrat, and Republicans fight for Ohio and Florida and only have locked up Texas.
Yeah, I mean, and most of the South, but they just don't have the Electoral College clout that California does. I mean, it's such a big prize.
Well, in the old days, in the Nixon days, is what we did was we brought across the entire Confederacy, all 11 states of the Confederacy that had gone 11-0 all 6 times for Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and we brought them across by still maintaining commitment to the Civil Rights Acts, all of which Nixon had supported.
Well, I mean, you go across the South, I think that holds. I think the
problem is Virginia, Sean.
Well, Virginia's a big problem, but, look at the last Senate race. I mean, Ed Gillespie was all but written off, and the polls had him down by double digits. And what did he lose, by % of the vote? I mean,
one of the problems here, let me tell you, is
Northern Virginia
change that's taken place, especially up here in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, that's Pat Buchanan territory. Why can't you control your peeps
up there?
I'm going to
have to move further south.
I think. Well, North Carolina's further south.
I'm going with the deplorables.
Yeah, well, I think you were one of the original deplorables. What are you talking about? Your deplorable credentials are well established, Pat.
Yeah, I've been called all of those names and many more
over the years. We both have. But look, I see a lot of good things that Trump's doing. Number one, he went to Louisiana. He went down to Mexico. He's given policy speech after policy speech after policy speech. He's staying on message. He's no longer distracted by, these outside fights with Joe Scarborough or the media or a Gold Star
you're
father.
Exactly right. I admire what he's doing, and just in terms of taking risk. It was a risky thing. That president of Mexico, they could have gotten a real spat down there, and it could have come off very badly, but he handled it extremely well. But he's taken risk. And secondly, let me tell you, Sean, I just read again that the speech he gave today, it is an excellent combination of 2 great ideas. One is a traditional Republican cut taxes, unleash the real dynamism of the country, keep tax rates low, corporate tax rates low, make us more competitive than other countries. At the same time, he's starting to deal directly with these, the trade practices of these foreign regimes who tax American goods coming in and rebate the taxes on their goods going to America.
Look, I think the message was, this is what frustrates me about some of these never-Trumper people. I mean, look at the agenda. We have a list of 11 justices he'd appoint to the Supreme Court. I agree with him. I think he is being prudent by listening to our top national security officials with extreme vetting of refugees. Hillary, supports a 550% increase. I think conservatives have always believed that we should build a wall and secure our borders. He's talking about energy independence. At the same time, simultaneously, Hillary's talking about putting coal companies out of business, coal workers out of work.
On these issues, we've got real clarity. Whatever you say, everybody knows they're arguing about what the wall means and these other things mean is no amnesty. We are going to secure the border. People who break laws are not going to benefit from breaking laws. We're going to do that. We're going to terminate these trade deals and negotiate new ones. We're going to stay out of a lot of these unnecessary wars we get into, we can't get out of or can't win or end. And so he's saying all of these things. And in here, I noticed even, what do you call it? He says the American system. He's talking about the American, Sean, that harkens back to Henry Clay, these guys that built this country, the economic nationalists from Hamilton to Clay to Lincoln to TR and all the others. I mean, his writers and he are getting versed in the real history of the country.
Do you think the Republican Party will ever be the same? Because
I think that, listen, I'm usually a pessimist, but I do believe this. If the establishment Republican will realize that, look, the old Bush Republicanism is dead. The free trade area is dead. Globalism and internationalism are temporarily dead. Bush 1, Bush 2 may have tried it. It didn't work. And there's a new era coming. But if the Republican establishment can just adopt a measure of economic patriotism a la Trump, while Trump goes with the program for smaller government, cutting taxes, incentivizing Americans, in other words, a much more competitive world rather than the New World Order stuff, I think you could put it together. I think it takes a real leader, a Reagan, frankly, or a Nixon, who put together that coalition of strange types back in 1972 to win 49 states for an uncharismatic candidate.
It's all true. And what I think Republicans have lost touch with, especially establishment Republicans, they're not understanding the severity of how bad the economy is with 95 million Americans out of work.
They got to have been hammered. When 16 of them got wiped out, and they look out there and they see people, they go out in Ohio and they start talking about how wonderful NAFTA is, and they booed off the stage. They got to wake up and say, did it work, what we promised them?
Even the Mexican president is willing to renegotiate it. I mean, it's not just our end. They're willing to renegotiate. I mean, that was one of the more shocking things that I think came out of that meeting in Mexico with the president, is that Donald Trump, as strong as he has been on Mexico, they still wanted to meet with him, and basically right there on the stage, he capitulated and admitted, yeah, we can redo this.
Well, they're going to have to redo it because, we got the whip hand, even with the Chinese. Look, the Chinese, what do they dump about $400-500 billion worth of goods in here every year, and we buy about $100 billion from them. So you tell them, look, you got a far larger share of our market than we got of your market, friends, and so we're going to renegotiate it, and if they say no, they'll say, okay, how would you like a 20% tariff on your goods coming into America?
Well, I mean, that's where I think the negotiating is. Now, look, I'm a free trader. You're a free trader, but you want free and fair trade.
Well, sure. The greatest free trade system on earth is what? It's the United States of America. We have free trade among the states. There's free movement of goods, of individuals, of ideas, and we like that. But in that situation, you got some states, New York, where you guys are up there, they might tax you 8% on your income and 4% in New York City, and Texas says we're not going to do any of that. So folks move to Texas. So this is what the world system should be like. We have our free trade system, but at the same time, America should look out for America first. We got the biggest, best market in the world. We got something to offer the whole world that nobody else has, and you guys are going to pay the price of admission. But if you move your plant to the United States, you compete free against Americans in America.
How despicable is it to, pick up the paper and see that Ford now is spending $1.6 billion in Mexico for all their small car production to start in 2018. Well, I know that there's plenty of jobs, people to work in Flint, Michigan, and Detroit, Michigan, and in Ohio, and in Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. They'd all like their jobs back.
Sure, let me tell you, though, here's what they get. And they go to Mexico, you pay them $8-10 an hour for Mexican hard-working folks like that. You could stop that in a second. You say, look, Ford, we can't tell you not to move down there. We can tell you this. Your Ford's coming out of there when they cross the border. We're putting a 20% tariff on them, and we're taking the money and we're cutting it on the auto production in the United States, reducing taxation on them. They would come right on back home. The inversions worldwide. I mean, if you take a look at Trump's coming to a 15% corporate tax, I think that's good. I would eliminate it on small businesses so you can create them. In the United States, use your tariff revenue to cut taxes on corporations in the USA.
Listen, I think the saving American jobs is resonating. Look, the statistics, I give them out every day, Pat. You know what? It's not because I want to hear myself think or talk. You have 95 million Americans out of the labor force, worse since the 70s. You got the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, the worst recovery since the 40s. You got 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, and we've got a doubling of our national debt, a president that accumulated more debt than every other president before him combined. 1 in 5 American families don't have a single person in the workforce. Now, saying that you're going to bring jobs back to America is resonating. If the Republican Party doesn't understand that cheap labor for their rich corporate buddies isn't going to fly anymore, that's their problem.
No, it is their problem, but they also got to realize.
Well, why are they so anti-Trump?
What they recommended.
Well, why are they so anti-Trump? Why are these guys sabotaging
they're
Trump?
Anti-Trump, I think, for obviously, look, personal reasons. He beat them to a pulp. I mean,
well, that's true.
Little Marco and Lion Ted and, the whole gang.
Okay, but you know what? So what? That's politics.
That's politics.
This is not beanball.
Some of them see, you got guys like Paul Ryan, who are a principled guy, but they represent this free trade ideology, and it is a religious belief with them. You can't even argue. Show them the evidence.
I'm for free trade. I'm just for fair trade.
Well, the point is, when you say you cannot have open border free trade between the United States, where you got, say, people average, say, $20-25 an hour, and guys that average $5 an hour, because all your factories will go to Mexico. They're going to go there. Ford's going there not because they hate the United States, but because they can produce cars or assemble cars more cheaply there than they can here. And if you want to keep the highest wages in the world, which we want, then you got to protect the American labor, and you got to protect American factories, and you can do it by putting a surcharge on goods made with cheap labor and rotten environments.
All right, Patrick J. Buchanan, thank you, sir.
Okay, you take it easy, my friend.
By the way, you deplorable that you are. All right.
We're going to need a bigger basket.
It's a big basket of deplorables, no doubt.